censorship is happening more and more frequently when it comes to our entertainment, and yes, that does have to do with companies chasing ESG dollars and attempting to create content for global audiences, but when you try to make something that appeals to everyone, it really appeals to no one, and now we have the Resident Evil creator slamming game censorship by saying the rules are made by people who don't play games. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, this is something that I wholeheartedly agree with. I do not want content to be censored when I am consuming it. That's why I talk so much on this channel about video game censorship and in movies and TV shows and anime, things like that, because I don't want things to be toned down. As an adult, I should be able to purchase and play or consume the type of content that I want. And as long as something is rated properly, we don't need trigger warnings. We don't need, higher ups at companies to tell developers to alter their own work. All you are doing is stifling creativity. And then in a couple of years, when companies keep doing this, if we don't fight back, everything will be the same. All bland and boring, no certain themes or certain types of storytelling, and that is why it's so important to fight back, and that's exactly what he's doing. The Resident Evil creator, Shinji Mikami, recently spoke out about game censorship, and of course specifically in Japan because he is Japanese, namely his dissatisfaction with Japan's strict video game rating system and how it can even cause games to be completely banned in the region, such as Dead Space and the Callisto Protocol. Now, obviously, games don't get banned in the United States because freedom of expression, but they do get banned in other places, and we do see a lot of self-censorship happen within the West. There are a lot of companies that are global entities, right? Look at something like Capcom, for example. They are a Japanese company, but they force their Japanese creators to censor things, not just for Japan, but also the West. And what they do is they claim it's because they want their games to appeal to everyone and meet global standards and, appeal to global audiences. But they are simply toning down things in a way that sensitive snowflakes on social media would find appropriate. And if entertainment continues down this path, everything is going to be the same. Nothing is going to be unique anymore. Nothing is going to be out there. There's not going to be crazy concepts and different story ideas. Everything's basically just going to be a copy and paste of each other. And as an adult, I don't want to be consuming content that somebody else says I'm not allowed to consume. That's freaking absurd. Now, the topic came up in a recent interview with him, and of course, a creator over at Suda51 on GameSpark about the upcoming remaster of their game Shadows of the Damned, due to it being released on multiple platforms in October, and the conversation turned to how differences between Japan's rating system and overseas meant that they had to censor parts of the game for the Japanese console releases for both the 2011 original and the upcoming remaster, basically releasing two different versions. Now, in many different places around the world, there are different standards. What the ESRB says is rated M, Peggy might not. Of course, we have Zero. And then if you look at different regions like Australia, for example, my God, Australia is so extremely strict when it comes to content. Half the games that release there, they have to, remove things as simple as, depictions of smoking. It says, to be launched on consoles in Japan, games must obtain a rating from Japan's Zero board, and there are many different, again, ratings boards out there, but Zero is Japan's. I think it's an odd system because games end up being restricted due to rules made by people who don't play games, blocking the enjoyment of those who want to play them, which is very true. The standards are set by people who don't understand or respect the medium. Those who create from a place of passion want to do so unfettered by censorship, and players want to experience their games as the developers originally intended. To me, half the battle here is creatives being allowed to be creative, not checking their work constantly, going, oh, is this going to be allowed? Is that going to be allowed? And that's why I have issues with ethics departments at companies like Square Enix, for example. I think it is fucking ridiculous that they have a team of people telling them what they can and can't put in games. And we're not just talking about a Japanese version. We're talking about a worldwide release. If you look at something like Sweet Baby Inc. and narrative consultation companies, they are primarily working with developers based in the United States and Canada. But you're talking about people who are censoring things and telling developers to censor and alter things for Western modern audiences, aka sensitive snowflakes on social media who don't want half the content that's out there to even exist. Look at something like Game of Thrones, for example. The people at Sweet Baby Inc., I bet, hate Game of Thrones because of gratuitous violence, sexual themes. I mean, the list goes on, and I like Game of Thrones. I think Game of Thrones is fantastic. But they, on the other hand, would love to see something like a Game of Thrones altered, something like a Game of Thrones maybe even not exist. Like with Black Myth Wukong, there were rumors that Sweet Baby Inc. basically tried to extort Game Science for $7 million because they saw the controversy Game Science was part of, simply because of mistranslations spread across the internet by IGN. But they said, allegedly, according to rumors, hey, listen, we know that you're facing a lot of backlash right now, and we see that your game's not diverse enough. Let's fix that. And they were told no, and that was that. But there are a lot of companies now that have internal ethics departments that, yes, do end up censoring things. And when it comes to Japan, Zero has been heavily criticized in the past due to their vague review processes and a lack of consistency in the games they deny ratings to. And I say this all the time with companies like Valve and Steam, and of course Sony and PlayStation. You need to have clear and concise guidelines if you're going to have guidelines. If you're going to sit here and deny people's creations, you need to tell them why they were denied, and even before they submit, what the rule set is, so they know if their content is going to be allowed or not. Now, of course, there is so much amazing content that comes out of Japan that does end up getting ratings, and sometimes titles that are presented now and released now wouldn't have gotten, released, let's say 15 years ago, and maybe they would have even gotten different ratings. And as time goes on, rule sets do get stricter and stricter, and things are refused. Classifications, even though they maybe wouldn't have in the past. But it is very disappointing to see this happen, because I do want creatives to be able to make what they feel passionately about and make what they want. And I am a firm believer in, as long as it does, have a rating, all this content should be able to exist. And he feels the same exact way. The rules are made by people who do not play video games, do not understand video games, and all they know is that they're flipping through certain screenshots and photos. They are watching video clips, and what someone might give, judging by the ESRB, a T for teen, another person might give an M for mature, and it's just a really crappy situation all around. It's not like video game censorship in Japan is new by any means, but it is really good to have a creator of this caliber come out and say that video game censorship is completely out of control, and I, of course, totally and completely agree. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.